Somewhere right now, someone is being punished for something you would call a virtue, and somewhere else, someone is being praised for something you would call a crime. Both of them believe, with total conviction, that they are on the side of good. So here's the question that should unsettle you more than it usually does. When you say something is wrong, not wrong for me, not wrong in my culture, but simply truly wrong, do you actually mean anything at all? Or are you just describing a feeling, dressed up in the language of fact, the way a toddler insists broccoli is bad, as if badness were a property of the vegetable itself? Because here is the uncomfortable truth most people never examine. We talk about morality as if it were as real as gravity. We say slavery was wrong, not just unpopular now. We say torturing a child for fun is wrong, not just something we personally dislike. But unlike gravity, you cannot point a telescope at the universe and find wrongness floating out there among the atoms. So where exactly is it? And if we can't find it anywhere in the physical world, does that mean it was never there to begin with? To understand how deep this problem runs, picture something the philosopher J.L. Mackie once asked us to imagine. Strip the universe down to its bare physical facts. Every atom, every force, every law of physics, mapped in perfect detail. Now ask, somewhere in that description, is there a line item for murder is wrong? Physics can tell you what happens when a blade enters flesh. It can tell you about nerve endings, blood loss, the biochemistry of pain and fear. What it cannot tell you, using its own methods, is that the act was wrong. That verdict doesn't show up on any instrument. It isn't a wavelength. It isn't a particle. And this is what Mackie called the argument from queerness. Moral facts, if they existed, would have to be the strangest kind of fact in the entire universe. Entities that don't just describe the world, but somehow command us, entirely unlike anything else we've ever discovered. This is the beginning of a position called moral anti-realism, or moral relativism in its more familiar form. The idea that moral claims aren't describing objective features of reality at all. They're expressing attitudes, preferences, cultural agreements. When you say cruelty is wrong, on this view, you're doing something closer to saying boo cruelty than the sky is blue. It sounds like a fact. Grammatically, it behaves like a fact. But underneath, it might be nothing more than a very persuasive kind of applause or booing dressed up in the vocabulary of truth. And once you notice this, you start noticing it everywhere. Anthropologists have spent over a century documenting just how differently human societies have drawn the line between right and wrong. Practices considered sacred duties in one culture have been considered monstrous crimes in another, sometimes only a few hundred miles apart. Entire moral systems have existed, genuinely, sincerely believed in, generation after generation, that modern people would recoil from without hesitation. And here's the deeper problem this creates. If morality were truly objective, the way mathematics or physics is objective, wouldn't we expect moral progress to look more like scientific progress? Steady convergence, cultures slowly arriving at the same conclusions the way they eventually agreed: the Earth orbits the Sun. Instead, moral disagreement seems to run all the way down, stubbornly, generation after generation, with no telescope powerful enough to settle it. This argument, sometimes called the argument from disagreement, has convinced serious philosophers that morality might be less like a discovery and more like a language. Not arbitrary, not meaningless, but built, the way grammar is built, real within the system, but not stitched into the fabric of the universe itself. And if that's true, It changes everything about how you should think about your own convictions, because it means that your deepest moral certainty, the thing you'd stake your life on, the line you'd never cross, might be underneath. No more universal than table manners, strongly felt, passionately defended, but invented. This is where most people expect the video to end. Morality is subjective. Nothing is really right or wrong. Roll credits, feel slightly hollow for the rest of the day. But that would be intellectually lazy, because the case for moral relativism has a crack running straight through the middle of it. And once you see the crack, you can't unsee it. See it. Here is the twist almost nobody sits with long enough. If morality really is nothing more than cultural preference, then the sentence, "The Holocaust was wrong," and the sentence, "I don't enjoy jazz," become structurally the exact same kind of claim. Both would simply be reports of personal or cultural taste. Not more true, not more binding, not more real. Just different flavors, different centuries, different applause. Almost nobody who says they believe morality is relative actually lives as if this were true. Watch how people behave, not how they argue in the abstract. Tell someone that a historical atrocity was just a different culture's way of doing things, and you'll usually find, buried underneath their theoretical relativism, an intuition clawing its way back to the surface, insisting that some things are not just disliked, but actually wrong. Wrong regardless of who believed otherwise. Wrong even if every single person on Earth had been raised to think it was fine. Philosophers who defend moral realism, the position that at least some moral facts are objectively true, independent of what any culture or individual believes, often point to exactly this instinct as evidence. Not proof, but evidence. The philosopher Derek Parfit spent decades of his life constructing an elaborate defense of the idea that certain moral truths hold in the same way logical or mathematical truths hold, not physical objects floating in space, but necessary truths nonetheless, the kind that would remain true even if no minds existed to think them. 2 + 2 = 4, whether or not any culture has agreed on it. Perhaps, Parfit argued, gratuitous cruelty is wrong, belongs in that same strange category of truth, not detectable by microscope, but no less real for it. And this is where modern moral psychology adds a layer almost nobody expects. It turns out human beings across wildly different cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, converge again and again on a small set of recurring moral concerns. The psychologist Jonathan Haidt, studying moral judgment across dozens of societies, found that while cultures differ enormously in how they apply moral values, how much weight they give to loyalty, to purity, to authority, the underlying foundations themselves show up again and again with startling consistency. Care for the vulnerable, fairness in exchange, loyalty to one's group. Almost no human society, anywhere, at any point in recorded history, has organized itself around the principle that gratuitous cruelty to innocents is admirable. The details of morality vary wildly. The architecture underneath it does not. This doesn't prove moral realism, but it complicates the relativist story in a serious way. If morality were purely arbitrary, invented independently by each culture the way flags or fashion are invented, we would expect far more variation in its most basic foundations than we actually observe. Instead, something in human moral cognition seems to keep discovering, or perhaps constructing, but constructing convergently, a strikingly similar set of concerns again and again, as if pulled toward it by something more than coincidence. So, which is it? A discovery or a construction? Philosophy hasn't settled this question, and you should be suspicious of anyone who tells you it has. But there is a third path, quieter than both extremes, that a growing number of philosophers have found more defensible than either pure relativism or classical realism. It begins with an idea from the philosopher Immanuel Kant, radical in its time and still radical now. Perhaps morality isn't a set of facts sitting out in the universe waiting to be discovered like uncharted stars. And perhaps it isn't a mere accident of culture either. Perhaps morality is something that emerges necessarily whenever rational social beings capable of recognizing each other as ends in themselves start reasoning honestly about how to live together. Not invented arbitrarily, the way etiquette is invented. Not discovered externally, the way gravity is discovered. Constructed, but constructed by something close to logical necessity, the way a bridge, if built correctly, must obey certain constraints, regardless of which engineers happen to build it. On this view, morality's objectivity doesn't come from floating moral particles somewhere in the universe. It comes from the structure of what it even means to reason about how beings capable of suffering and flourishing should treat one another. Just as you cannot coherently believe that 2 + 2 equals both 4 and 5, Kant argued, you cannot coherently will that everyone should lie or steal or exploit each other without contradicting the very conditions that make reasoning together possible in the first place. Morality, on this account, is objective not because it's written into the stars, but because it's written into the logic of what it means to treat another mind as real. Perhaps the most honest place to land is this: the search for moral facts floating freely in physical reality, detectable by microscope or telescope, was probably always going to come up empty. Not because morality is fake, but because that was never the right place to look. Numbers aren't found under microscopes either, and almost no one concludes from that fact that 2 + 2 is a matter of cultural opinion. Maybe morality is real in the way logic is real, not a substance, not a particle. A structure, one that emerges reliably, almost inevitably, wherever beings capable of suffering, empathy, and reason encounter one another and are forced to ask the question every conscious creature eventually asks: how, given that you can hurt me and I can hurt you, should we live? That question doesn't disappear just because no telescope can find its answer written in the stars. If anything, its persistence across every culture, every century, every attempt to reason honestly about how to treat one another might be the closest thing to evidence morality could ever offer. You came here asking whether right and wrong were real or just a story. Maybe the most rigorous answer available is this: morality may not be a fact about the universe the way a rock or a star is a fact about the universe. But it may be something closer to a fact about what happens, necessarily, whenever minds capable of understanding one another's pain choose again and again across every culture that has ever existed to treat that pain as something that matters. So tell me, if you learned tomorrow that your deepest moral convictions were entirely a product of your culture and upbringing, would you actually abandon them? Or would something in you insist, quietly but unmistakably, that some things remain wrong regardless of who agrees? Leave your answer below. I'll be reading.